Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Election Night 2018. I'm Jeanelle Slade.
And I'm Jay Cohn. The votes are rolling in. Montana voters turning out in record numbers today. Let's take a look at the top races in Montana tonight, bringing you up to date. In the hotly contested U.S. Senate race that brought President Trump to Montana 4 times, Matt Rosendale challenging incumbent Jon Tester, but right now he's coming up a bit short. 53% of the votes tallied so far going to incumbent Senator Jon Tester, 45% to Matt Rosendale. Rick Breckenridge, the Libertarian Party candidate who withdrew from the race just a week ago and threw his support to Matt Rosendale, well, he is polling about 3% of the tally.
Now let's go check on both Senate campaign locations with Mike Dennison and Jonathan Ambarian.
I'm Mike Dennison of Great Falls at the election night party for Senator Jon Tester. The early returns have put this crowd in a festive mood, as you can hear, as Jon Tester has staked out an early but solid lead over his Republican challenger, Matt Rosendale. The senator himself has been down tonight working the crowd, and he's got to feel good looking at the initial numbers. In Yellowstone County, a place where Republicans have to do well to win, Tester is essentially tied with Rosendale. In other big Republican counties, he's holding his own, losing by only a few points. And Tester is rolling up big margins in Democratic counties. Any way you slice it, Tester has to be feeling pretty good at this moment. But we still have many votes to count before the evening is over.
I'm here at the Delta Colonial Hotel in Helena, where Matt Rosendale has his campaign headquarters. Been here for several hours now. The room has filled up, about 100 people here. So far, people are still sort of milling about, waiting to see more definitive results here as we go forward into the night. Rosendale was actually out here a few minutes ago, spent about 45 minutes going around the room, shaking hands with his supporters, saying hello to people, but he hasn't yet made any kind of an official speech. Of course, this is a race that took a lot of national attention from the Republicans, hoping for a big turnout from the Republican base. We'll see as the night goes on here whether that kind of turnout that they were hoping for shows up and whether it's enough to give Rosendale a victory. We'll be watching here throughout the night. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. Busy night both in Helena and Great Falls tonight as they wait for these election returns to come in.
Meanwhile, in the Montana's U.S. House race, incumbent Republican Greg Gianforte hoping to stave off a spirited challenge from Democrat Kathleen Williams. Here's those early returns.
Right now, a flip in this race. We've been watching it get tighter and tighter by the quarter hour. And just moments ago, Greg Gianforte has edged into the lead now in his bid for re-election. With 49% of the vote in, Greg Gianforte with a slight lead over Democrat Kathleen Williams. Eleanor Swanson now down to 2% of the votes cast. We're also going to take you now to Bozeman, where both House candidates are having their election gatherings tonight with Medeiros Babb and Caitlin Corbett. Caitlin?
I'm back here at the Hilton Garden Inn in Bozeman at Congressman Gianforte's election party. Now, as you can see, there's a pretty big crowd here. The campaign tells me there's about 350 people all here watching the election results come in. Gianforte took some time just after the polls closed to acknowledge some of the other Republican candidates running for office.
It's great to have a terrific slate of candidates running for office, and I just want to take a minute to recognize them all. And can we give them a round of applause? Really appreciate it. All we have for now is enjoy the food and enjoy each other's company, and we'll be back as we have results. Thank you.
U.S. Senator Steve Daines is present, as well as businessman Troy Downing, all watching these results come in. And right now the race is pretty tight, and we'll be back here later on as more results come in.
I'm Medeiros Babb here at the Rialto in downtown Bozeman with Kathleen Williams, Communication Director Neil Ullman. Neil, it has hit capacity here with 350 people in the main room. How amazing does that feel?
It's great. It's the same kind of response we've been getting all summer and fall. Just people showing up, looking for a true representative in Congress, and this is kind of the culmination of all the work that we've done this year.
Williams does have the lead right now. It's a small lead, but she is up. Do you think it's going to be a tight race going forward?
Absolutely, it's going to be tight. There's still a lot of precincts to be counted. A lot of counties haven't reported anything yet at all. Still along the High Line in Indian Country. And a lot of precincts in some of the major counties as well, Cascade County. So there's still a lot more things to come in.
Are you feeling optimistic, especially with those cheers right behind you?
Well, we're getting a lot of news from all across the country, so lots of cheers, lots of excitement, but we're still waiting to hear a lot of results here in Montana.
Well, thank you for joining me, Neil. We will keep you updated as more results come in Bozeman. Medeiros Babb, MTN News.
Thanks, Medeiros, and Caitlin as well.
Absolutely. Well, we want to bring you up to date here with our room of analysts tonight. We have Jake Eaton with our Republican side of things, and Brandon DeMars helping us out with the Democratic perspective. Let's talk with you, Brandon, first off. Jon Tester looking pretty good. Apparently 4 visits by President Trump to the state in a bid to unseat him. Apparently not enough, huh?
Apparently not. He's looking pretty good. Obviously, there's still a lot of votes to be reported. Some counties haven't set their numbers in yet, but I think at this point he's looking like he's heading in the right direction.
Let's switch to the Kathleen Williams, Greg Gianforte race. I want to get your feeling on that. Close, but getting uncomfortably close. We just saw the latest tally where Gianforte has flipped into the lead now. So Kathleen Williams can't maintain the same advantage that Jon Tester. Of course, Jon Tester's had 12 years in Washington to establish a little more stronghold with the voters.
He's had a little more time to build up that name recognition, but again with that one, you know, I think it's under 1% the difference now, so it's going to be very close as the night goes on. Again, you want to be looking at these urban counties, Missoula, Gallatin, hearing that a lot of folks are still voting in Gallatin County, which of course is home to both Congressman Gianforte and Kathleen Williams. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
Just a 1% difference right now between those two. Jake, your comments, both first with the Senate, you kind of had an inkling this might be going this way.
Yeah, I mean, we knew it was going to be tight from the beginning, and you know, Jon Tester's the #1 recipient of lobbyist money and all the members of Congress, and it looks like that money's paying off for him. I mean, he outspent Matt Rosendale tremendously, and I think maybe it's looking like that money was enough to kind of counterbalance President Trump's presence 4 times. So I think there's still, you know, a couple 100,000 votes left to cast, so anything or count, but anything can happen, but it's not positive at this point.
Some people apparently are still casting their votes, but if you look at the Kathleen Williams campaign manager saying still a lot of urban counties and some of the rural Indian country votes are not in, are you feeling much better now about Gianforte's chances?
Definitely. I think those early votes we saw coming in, you know, were from some of the liberal strongholds. I mean, they were in Butte, they were in Helena, some early Missoula numbers. So it's not a real surprise that Kathleen Williams was doing better in those places. And now that we're starting to see numbers come in from, you know, a smattering across the state and kind of starting to see that even out.
All right.
All right, now we're going to head over to Russ Riesinger, who's standing right now with more political analysis tonight. Russ.
Yeah, I'm joined by Dr. Jason Atkins. He's a political professor at MSU Billings. And we were just checking out this map here. There is still a long ways to go in this election. You can see a lot of counties, most of the counties still have not reported.
Yeah, we have less than a third of the vote in. Look, the map has about, what, 27% of the vote, not even a third of the vote. And we can see we have some counties that haven't reported, like Gallatin. Then you look at Missoula County, deep support for Jon Tester and Kathleen Williams, but not even half of their vote has been counted yet. So there is a lot of time left in the night. It's going to be a long night.
Yeah, we still have a lot of votes to count here in Yellowstone County, but we were talking earlier about how Jon Tester seems to be holding his own. At last report, I think he was down 63 votes is all to Matt Rosendale. How important is it for him to have a good showing here in Yellowstone County if he's going to win?
He needs to. He needs to keep that Republican advantage as low as possible, so he can take it. You know, keep that vote total high in some of the other counties back east, or back west, right, such as Gallatin County, Cascade County, which is near his hometown, Missoula County.
All right, we're going to send it back to Jay and Jeanelle now.
All right, thanks, Russ.
Now, down in Wyoming, the dust has already settled, and already Republicans are projected as winning the top of the ticket. In the race for the U.S. Senate, incumbent John Barrasso, who has served since 2007, is retaining his seat. He beat out Democrat Gary Troner and the Libertarian candidates.
Meanwhile, in the race for the U.S. House in Wyoming, Republican incumbent Liz Cheney has a commanding lead in her bid for a second term. She, of course, the eldest daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney. You can see she leads Democrat Greg Hunter by more than a 2-to-1 margin. And as you see by the check next to her name, CBS News has projected Liz Cheney will be retained and sent back for another term in the House from the state of Wyoming.
And the race for Wyoming's governor has also been called. There were no incumbents this year as Governor Matt Mead had met his term limit. Wyoming's current treasurer Mark Gordon is projected to be Wyoming's new governor. He came out on top over Democratic former state representative Mary Throne. And in Initiative 185, the contentious tobacco tax, more than $20 million has been poured into the campaign from both sides. Let's take a look at those numbers. Early polling showed a narrow sliver of support for the initiative. Many in the healthcare field praised that initiative, but opponents are worried the initiative wouldn't pay for itself and other areas of the state would suffer. Right now, we're seeing 52% no, so the no's are beating out the yeses at this hour with about 84,000 votes to about 77,000.
These results have flipped within the last hour. Initiative 185 was being approved early in the tallies, but now it has flipped and gone to the negative side for Initiative 185. And as for Initiative 186, that strikes at the heart of Montana's mining industry, it had its fair share of support and opposition, but right now the no votes seem to be winning out in the battle over Initiative 186. 57% voting against I-186, 43% in favor.
The 6 mill levy used to help fund higher education for state schools. This legislative referendum is put on ballots every 10 years to help more students go to school. Yes, again, our state is saying yes, 63% to 37% for the 6 mill levy. And
legislative referendum, the restriction on who can take your ballot, well, that one also passing 63% in favor to 37% against. For some reason, this became an issue in the past election. It was going to confuse some people, but it seemed like this was just kind of a no-brainer. It was asking if you wanted a third party to be able to take your ballot to the polls, which seemed to be kind of standard operating procedure years ago. Suddenly that became an issue in the last election, Jay.
Well, yeah, I think it became a tool for the environmental groups and for the unions, and really caused a lot of problems in several elections, specifically into local elections. When we get into some of these legislative districts where you're talking about, you know, these races could be decided by just 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 votes, and all of a sudden some ballots go missing and people are trying to find out what's going on election day. So, you know, this really is a good voter protection mechanism, I think, across the board.
Brandon, did you get caught surprised by this? Because it didn't seem like there was getting any traction. Of course, we had the other big initiatives to get most of the attention.
Yeah, that's one that really flew under the radar this year. I was a little disappointed to see that it's going the way it is. I think being able to help your neighbors vote is a really important tool we have had in Montana up until now. So it's looking like that's not going to still be an option, but we'll see what happens.
We'll see.
Okay.
Of course, all these referendums and ballot initiatives are subject to check by the state legislature, and they have shown their ability to go in and change initiatives if they seem to have the votes and the will to do it. So that's what we can look forward to once the legislature goes into session after the start of the year. Russ Riesinger, we're going to head over there so we can check in with a little more analysis on these latest few votes we've talked about.
Yeah, and I'm with Dr. Jason Atkins, political professor at MSU Billings. Surprised at all by the way the initiatives have gone so far?
Honestly, yes. The Montana poll showed both initiatives passing. But there were a lot of undecideds as well. I think that's what happened. A lot of undecideds swung in opposition. Plus, there's a huge ad barrage in opposition to these initiatives. Seeing
the biggest turnout we've ever seen here in Montana for a midterm election. What do you think is driving that?
A lot of it's the referendum on the president. You know, Trump supporters want their voice heard and want to keep politicians that support him in office. And, you know, his opponents, as Trump calls them, the resistance, want to see people in office that would oppose his policies.
And the president really made the focus in his campaign rallies across the nation on the Senate, which it seems to have worked in other states, but so far not here that we're aware of.
Right. I mean, it's still early, but it's a bit shocking looking at what's happened elsewhere in the country with Joe Donnelly, Claire McCaskill, and down in Florida with Bill Nelson.
All right, we're going to send it back to you, Jay and Jeanelle.
All right. Thanks so much, Russ.
Well, we have a lot of district court judges races to talk about tonight, not only here in Yellowstone County, but elsewhere around the state. We have 2 open seats in this election here in Yellowstone County. The first District Court 13, this is where Attorney Colette Davies is taking on Deputy City Attorney Thomas Pardee. And as it was in the primary, it all is in favor of Colette Davies with 59% of the vote right now to Pardee's 41%.
And for Department 8, Billings Attorney Ashley Harada facing off against former Yellowstone County Prosecutor Julie Pierce. And it appears Julie Pierce has 51% of the vote at this hour to Ashley Harada's 49%.
Q2's Zoe Zandora has been keeping a closer look at the races for judge for us tonight and joins us here in studio to bring us the latest on what she found out. Zoe.
Thanks, Jay and Jeanelle. I did reach out to everyone in the races as the numbers are coming in to hear their reactions. And the District 13, Department 7, a bit of a gap with Colette Davies at 59, as you said, Thompson Pardee 41%. Now the District 13, Department 8, a closer race with Julie Pierce just up 51% over Ashley Harada. As you said, a lot of people are watching this race as Yellowstone makes way for the 2 positions. I did get to speak with Thomas Pardee on the phone to hear his reactions of his 41% result in the race so far.
I don't know what my reaction is. They're lower than I hoped. I guess the race isn't over until we cross the finish line, but I was obviously hoping for better numbers, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
And Pardee told me, we aren't at the finish line just yet, and we will keep watching the race as numbers come in. We are watching the District 22 race as well, as you mentioned earlier, which include Carbon, Stillwater, and Bighorn counties. And we will report on those numbers as soon as we know. Jay and Jeanelle?
All right, thanks so much, Zoe.
Let's take a look at that race right now. I'm not sure we have numbers in, but this district court for Carbon, Stillwater, and Bighorn counties. County Attorney Matt Wald is pairing off against Ray Kuntz, the Carbon County Attorney, and I believe this is where the judge has retired. I'm spacing his name right now.
Blair Jones.
Blair Jones, thank you, Jake. He has stepped down, so this is an open seat on the court, and it will be interesting to see. This also will be in at the very early hours in the morning. We've been told by Carbon County they're not releasing any of their numbers until everything has been counted, so we'll have to wait a little bit on that.
Wouldn't that make this just all easier if everyone just waited till we had all their numbers? A surprisingly interesting race this election cycle. The Clerk of Supreme Court. Now this is a state elected position and voted on by the entire state. Take a look here. Bowen Greenwood with 50% of the vote, a Republican, to Rex Rink with 45% of that vote.
Jake Eaton, you were saying this position has been in Democratic hands almost as long as you've been alive.
Almost as long as I've been alive, yeah. It's been at least, I think, 15 or 20 years since Republicans have even fielded a candidate for this position. And so this is, a pretty amazing opportunity for us just to pick up another statewide elected official.
There was a little bit of controversy in this race in that they felt Bowen was trying to make it politicized a little bit. It didn't seem to get much traction, but it seems like voters were, at least it got a little attention in the race.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are partisan races, right? So it's going to get a little bit political, and I think, deservedly so. The Supreme Court is one of the most political bodies in the state of Montana, so I think for folks to think it wouldn't get political would be a little naive. But like I said, it's a great opportunity for Republicans to pick up another statewide elected official.
We were kind of joking earlier, who knew the clerk of the Supreme Court was going to be the one that would be keeping the race up late at night.
And tonight, Yellowstone County deciding on a commissioner. This pits incumbent Democrat Robin Driscoll against local businessman Don Jones. And
as you see the numbers, it looks like Don Jones has picked up this seat here in Yellowstone County on the county commission, 55% to Robin Driscoll's 45%. This was Driscoll's first chance at getting elected. She was appointed to this seat when Bill Kennedy stepped down about a year ago. And both Jones and Driscoll have run and served in the legislature in Yellowstone County. So it really was a test to see who had recollection, I guess, amongst the voters. And Don Jones off to victory tonight.
And for County Auditor, Becky Riedel is facing off against Republican incumbent Scott Turner. And you see Scott Turner with 60% of the vote to Becky Riedel's 40%. There's quite a gap there.
And now excitement down at the Republican headquarters here in Yellowstone County as some GOP victories being declared tonight.
That's where we'll find Q2's Samantha Samantha Sullivan standing by live. Sorry, Sammy.
Did you get married or something?
Yeah.
It's okay, Jeanelle. I'm still getting used to it. It's really hard when you change your name. Well, we are here at the Republican Watch Party for the Yellowstone County Republicans, and as you guys were mentioning, we are here following the Yellowstone County Commissioner race, and as you mentioned, it is looking pretty good for Dawn Jones, who is the Republican challenger in this race. Of course, Robin Driscoll, as you guys mentioned, is a Democrat, and she was never actually elected to the position. She was appointed back in 2016 when Bill Kennedy left the county commission. So right now, here with the numbers, as you guys mentioned, about 41% of people are reporting here in Yellowstone County, and Dawn Jones is up 55% to 45%. Spoke to him a couple of minutes ago. He says right now he's cautiously optimistic. He doesn't want to get ahead of himself, though, as there are still quite a few votes to be counted in this race. But he did mention to me, after working in the state legislature, he would love to work a little bit closer to home and help the people here in Yellowstone County. So for right now, a pretty excited mood here at the Republican Party, but as he mentioned, cautiously optimistic. Jay and Jeanelle.
All right, thank you, Sammy. Well, that's a big change on the county commission. It means the Republicans are going to hold all 3 seats now in the Yellowstone County Commission. That hasn't been the case for a while, so we'll see how that plays out. But right now, looks like Dawn Jones is on his way to taking that seat.
We'll be right back.
You're watching MTN News with Jay Cohn and Jeanelle Slade. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire and sports with Scott Green. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.